boss was Philip Chicken Man Testa, who was Angelo Bruno's successor, but Chicken Man will be killed in an explosion from a bomb that was placed under his porch. Philip Testa was killed less than a year since Bruno's death. The Philadelphia crime family loses 2 godfathers less than 2 years. Therefore, the commission, the bosses of the 5 families in New York, will honor and choose Nicky Scarfo as the godfather of Philadelphia. Little Nicky Scarfo would reach the pinnacle of his career. Everyone knew the more powerful Nicky Scarfo became, the more paranoid and destructive he would be amongst anyone who crossed paths, including his own son, Mark Scarfo, to recruit him into the mafia. However, Mark Scarfo would refuse his father's offers, which would rub Nicky Scarfo the wrong way. But he had bigger fish to fry. Nicky Scarfo and his entourage would improvise a street tax to all criminals to pay a percentage of their earnings to the Scarfo crime family for running any illegal activities. If anyone refused to pay Scarfo's entourage, they would be marked for death. Nicky Scarfo would make the sign of a gun. He would shape his hand like a gun as a calling card to notify his entourage that someone was marked for death, and they would take care of it. Therefore, Nicky Scarfo would lead his entourage into a killing spree. He enjoyed the headlines of the victims he wanted to kill. He enjoyed to smile in front of the cameras while being arrested, and he immersed fear into the criminal underworld. On the other hand, not everyone shared his vision. His own criminal family feared him, along with his own biological family. Mark Scarfo would see his father get arrested numerous times. He would be teased again due to all the negative publicity. He would see and hear all the tragic stories that would surround him and his family. His father would publicly go to war with his arch nemesis, Harry the Hunchback Riccobene, because he refused to pay the street tax. Therefore, Scarfo made the sign of the gun for his men to mark Carol Riccobene for death. Nicky Scarfo and Harry the Hunchback were both incarcerated for other criminal charges. Therefore, the leaders will orchestrate their war behind bars. Scarfo would travel to Philadelphia and meet with the captains left over from the Bruno and Testa regimes to discuss the family's new hierarchy. Nicky Scarfo would name his close friend Salvatore Chucky Molino as his new underboss, and Testa loyalist Frank Monte to the post of consigliere. Me, Chucky, and Lawrence were the only ones who knew what Pete Casella had told the Chin. This is Vincent the Chin Gigante. About the plot to kill Phil Testa. My uncle was afraid if Salvi knew, who was Philip the Chicken Man Testa's son, if Salvi knew, or even Frank Monte, they would kill Chicky Narducci immediately. My uncle says, we're gonna kill him. We're just gonna not kill him yet. Scarfo decided to send his consigliere Frank Monte and the treacherous Raymond Long John Mortorao to see Harry's younger brother, Mario, Sonny Riccobene. Within the order from Scarfo that Sonny helped in setting up to his brother to be killed, the move backfired. Instead of joining the assault against his brother, Sonny Riccobene went to his brother and warned him of the pending plot to kill him, and who was involved. The Hunchback's response was loud and left little doubt that he was no more willing to go toe-to-toe with little Nicky. Now we're going to show you another way the story's been told, and this is from George Anastasia's point of view. So please understand that this may be a little redundant, but here's a little bit of different depths of how George Anastasia builds the story. According to George Anastasia's Blood and Honor book, Scarfo, whose connections in Atlantic City had helped forge allies with members of the powerful Genovese and Gambino crime families in New York, had outmaneuvered Casella and Narducci. By the end of March 1981, word once came down to the Philadelphia from New York. Nicodemo, Little Nicky Scarfo, was the new boss. Scarfo named Salvatore Marlino his underboss, and Frank Monte was appointed consigliere. For those who may not be familiar about the hierarchical structure, many people pay attention to the mob boss, who is the number 1 position. The underboss is the number 2 position, and the third boss is the consigliere. While consigliere may be positioned at number 3, they themselves are known for giving more advice to the main boss, number 1, than the actual number 2. They serve a very pivotal role and have ways of trying to convince the serving boss of what their advice is, or other people in lower rankings. That is the position of the consigliere, whereas the underboss is like the vice president. They're just a sitting position to wait their turn if they ever need to appoint or step in as the new boss for a temporary or permanent time. In April, after several attempts to ambush Harry Riccobene had failed, Scarfo decided on a more insidious form of treachery, and he sent his consigliere Frank Monte and Raymond Long John Mortorano, then a suspect in the John McCullough murder, to see if Harry's half-brother Mario, Sonny Riccobene. Mario knew Long John. They both were in the methamphetamine business. What Mortorano and Monte proposed was that Mario to set up his half-brother up. Mario listened, and he said he'd get back to them. And then when he went back to his brother Harry, and that said, Nick the Crow Caramondi, was what forced the Riccobene War out in the open. For the next year and a half would rage on the streets of South Philadelphia. Harry Riccobene had been cautious and suspicious of Scarfo. He had hoped to avoid open warfare. It was only after Monte and Mortorano tried to co-opt his brother and Riccobene decided to act. Once Mario Riccobene was approached, he had just 2 options. He could either set up his brother, or, like his brother, he could become a target. At this point, Scarfo had backed the Riccobenes into a corner. It's them or us, Harry Riccobene told his brother. It's either kill or be killed. Let's get them before they get us. Mario Riccobene's answer was delivered to Frank Monte, a service station in southwest Philadelphia, on May 13th, by Joseph Padula and Victor DeLuca, 2 Riccobene associates. Padula was lying in ambush in a camper mounted on the back of a small pickup truck. The truck was parked across the street from the service station where Monte had left his car. Padula had a .22 caliber rifle with a telescope sight. DeLuca and another associate waited in a bar nearby. Shortly after 9 p.m., Monte showed up in his car. Padula got him in his sight and squeezed the trigger, and squeezed again, and squeezed again, and squeezed again. Monte, 49, was shot 5 times in the back and head. There were also bullet wounds in his left hand, right arm, and upper right arm. The mob consigliere had $600 in cash in his pocket when police found him lying semi-conscious in the streets near the gas station at 9:30 that night. He was pronounced dead a half hour later. Monte's name was near the top of that hit list drawn up by the Riccobenes after Mario was approached that spring and asked to set up his brother. The Riccobenes, in turn, were on top of that list prepared by Scarfo and his henchmen. For the rest of 1982 and all of 1983, squads of gunmen cruised through the streets of South Philadelphia looking for targets.
Only 3 of the alleged co-conspirators were in court today. Alleged La Casa Nostra faction leader Harry Riccobene, plus Vincent Isabella and Joseph Casdia. Victor DeLuca remains at Graterford Prison for other crimes. Mario Riccobene is in a Connecticut prison. They'll all be brought in late April when the preliminary hearing finally comes off. Judge Mitchell Lipschitz continued the case because of the 2 absent defendants and the questions about possible conflicts of interest for defense lawyer Charles Peruto Jr., who now represents Harry Riccobene, but who in the past did some defense work for the DA's star witness, Joseph Padula, the convicted organized crime triggerman who has turned informant. Padula is ready to finger the other defendants in all of this with conspiracy or attempting to murder at least 5 of Philadelphia's top reputed mob figures, including Nicky Scarfo and Salvatore Testa. In May 1982, Frank Monti, a leading mob figure, was murdered. Salvatore Testa was critically wounded in the summer of '82. Assistant District Attorney Arnold Gordon outlined the case they plan to prove.
In connection with that conspiracy, they surveilled the movements of Frank Monti and Raymond Martirano, that Isabella supplied the men with a .45 caliber machine gun, 22 caliber rifle with a scope, other guns, that on the day of Frank Monti's killing, Monti was watched by Harry Riccobene, Joseph Casdia, Victor DeLuca, and Joseph Padula, and that eventually Padula shot Monti about 8 times as he returned to his automobile. That Casdia drove the camper from which Padula had shot away from the scene of the shooting.
He is pleading not guilty, he is not guilty, and the time will come when all of that will out.
You don't believe Padula can finger him?
It's my belief that Padula is intending to do that. Whether or not a jury will believe Padula is the important factor here to be considered.
The explosive testimony of mob hitman Joseph Padula is now due to be heard in open court on April 24th. At that time, all the defendants will be in court to face their accuser, who was once their alleged co-conspirator and triggerman. Vernon Odom, Channel 6 Action News at City Hall.
Everybody was holding everybody up the other night. Saturday night. Yeah, 4.
Can't believe it, man.
When we went to the back, we saw her trying to grab at the figure that was on the ground of her, I guess her son or whatever it was, and we could see, looking in the yard beside it, broken off shotgun.
Sawed-off shotgun?
Sawed-off shotgun.
Driver hadn't gotten in yet.
Philadelphia homicide detectives say Robert Riccobene was bringing his mother home from a shopping trip at about 10 o'clock last night. 73-year-old Jean Riccobene is Harry the Hunchback Riccobene's stepmother and was living in Harry's southwest Philadelphia home while he serves time in a federal prison on a racketeering conviction. As Jean Riccobene and her son Robert got out of this blue car last night, police say the Riccobenes saw 2 men approach them with a sawed-off shotgun. The Riccobenes apparently tried to flee, but the gunman caught up with them in a next-door neighbor's backyard. At that point, neighbors tell me they heard a shot ring out. Dolores Pisano tells me she came outside when she heard Jean Riccobene's screams.
I said to her, "Can I help you in any way?" And she says, "No, my son, he's shot." And then I heard her say to the policeman then finally came, and she said to the police, "Please help me." She says, I tried to catch him. I stopped him from shooting him, but he wouldn't stop. He just shot him anyhow, dropped the gun and ran.
Officials say Robert Riccobene was shot at close range in the back of the head. His mother was slightly injured when the butt of the shotgun hit her in the face. Investigators believe this is just one more incident in the mob war that began when Angelo Bruno was murdered. Certain law enforcement officials tell Action News this hit was not unexpected. Riccobene was warned, in fact, that his life was in danger. I'm Robin Garrison.
It happened at about 7:10 last night. Patrons of the Brooklawn Diner noticed a car in the parking lot, its engine racing red hot and smoke pouring from it.
Nobody wanted to go really up close because the car was like smoking and making a lot of noise.
And the underneath of it was red?
It was red. It was red because the guy's foot was in the accelerator. So I don't know how long he was in there.
Inside the station wagon was the body of a man, his head bent forward. He had been shot in the head. Bullet casings were found at the scene, and today investigators returned to search for the gun, but none was found. The man's driver's license was reportedly issued in North Carolina. Police have a tentative identification, but have not yet released it. 60-year-old Mario Sonny Riccobene, a one-time member of the Bruno Scarfo organized crime family, has been identified as the man murdered last night in the parking lot of the Brooklawn Diner. Riccobene had been shot several times in the head as he sat in this parked station wagon. The driver's side window shattered by gunfire. Riccobene's foot on the accelerator, the engine running red hot.
Given the circumstances of the killing, we are obviously investigating an organized crime connection.
Riccobene had been in the federal witness protection program from 1984 until '89, when, according to the FBI, he was kicked out for habitually violating security procedures. Riccobene returned to live in rural Gloucester County with his elderly mother.
I have to tell you, my experience has been that some people in the witness protection program do very foolish things.
Riccobene is the half-brother of Harry the Hunchback Riccobene, who is serving time for the 1982 murder of Frank Monty. In '84, Sonny Riccobene began cooperating with police against other mobsters, including his half-brother, and at that time entered witness protection.
Last night's murder here in Brooklawn came 3 weeks after another murder in Audubon, New Jersey.
In that case, a reputed West Coast gang enforcer, Rod Colombo, was shot in the head as he sat in a parked car.
We're looking at the similarities, but we have no reason other than those circumstantial similarities to think that they're connected at this point.
While Riccobene was no longer in the federal witness protection program, law enforcement officials kept tabs on him. They knew where he was. Obviously, Riccobene's enemies also knew where to find him. I'm Kathy Gandolfo, Channel 6 Action News, Camden, New Jersey.
Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to our channel and check out more of our content. Feel free to give your feedback and suggestions on what we should do next in the comments. This is Infinite Lee Productions. We love ya.